Okay, record. Okay, so welcome back to Finding Yourself in the Psalms, and we are um, on page, if you have this edition, we're on page 123. And if not, you can be using any translation of Psalms because I'm going to be differing from all of them probably. This is Psalm 27, and I think let's say verse 8. Let's say verse 8. Although I think we did this one last time. So remember the tone of this verse of this psalm is that he's talking to right now he's talking to God, and he says, God, hear my voice when I cry out, be gracious and answer me. And this is also, it's interesting how this theme continues well into the next psalm. I'm not sure. The next psalm could be kind of part two of this one. It could continues a lot of the same, a lot of the same themes, and so he's asking for God to answer him, and he says, "L'cha amar libi," and says, "And my heart," and it says, and my heart spoke." Um, literally, like my heart spoke to you. But it's interesting why he translates this. He says, um, all the commentators translate this lecha amar libi as lemancha amar libi, like on your behalf, as my heart was speaking, as if my heart was the heart is speaking on God's behalf. Well, it's interesting, by the way, the idea of the heart speaking, right? We do have this, kind of center of our being that communicates to us, right? We have this inner, moral, ethical, spiritual GPS that I'm sorry for that analogy. I'm going to regret that later. But I hate when I do that. But um, we have this voice inside of us, right? And he says it's the heart, the heart not only speaks for us, but speaks for God. It's our point of communication, with God, in which God can also speak through us, so to speak. So he says, the message from you, my heart said, said, uh, Bakshu fanai, seek my face, right? Seek my face. Of course, we know God doesn't have a face, so when we refer to God's face, it means God's presence, right? God's presence. That's kind of how we relate to another person, is through their face. So when we talk about God's face, talk about God's presence. So the heart said, Bakshu panai, long for my presence, right? Have a and bakshu also means to seek, right? To seek, not just to yearn, but to seek out something. Et panecha Adonai avakesh, and my response was yes. It says, yes, God. It says, I will search. I'll search for your face. I'll search for your nearness. I'll search for your presence. An kaster panecha mimeni. And now and the heart, I guess the heart is continuing its conversation with God and saying, and he's continuing this conversation with God. He says, don't hide your face from me. It says, don't turn away your servant in anger, right? Because you just told me to look for your face. You just told me to look for your presence. So don't turn your presence away from me. If I'm going to come look for you, please make yourself available to me, and don't turn away from in anger. It says, Ezrate Hayita, you've been my help. It says, Alti chaining don't discard me or forsake me. And that, that feeling, that's such the feeling behind that is so intense, right? We don't want God to throw us away. You know, we want God to find a use for us. We want God to be able to do something good for us, you know, to do something good with us. And that feeling of the feeling of like maybe God is going to throw us away, he's going to turn his face away from us. He's not going to make himself available to us. That's a very big fear. So he says, please, you know, don't throw me away. He says, "Elohei God, you are my salvation. You're what I count on." He says, "Ke'avivi ami azavuni, ve'Adonai yaspeini." And this I mentioned last time. My father and my mother abandoned me, but God, you gather me in. So I gather me in. So I think we talked about this last week, but the way I would understand this is like even if my father and mother may abandon me, I know that you'll gather me in. I know that you know the people that you most trust in the world, right? The people who you as a baby develop this attachment to, whether or not they're really, you know, we know these cases of people who have horrible parents, and yet the kids are, you know, the kids can be fiercely attached to them, or at least attach them in some sort of in some sort of way, and they'll cling, you know, to a father and mother who even rejects them. And so it says, my father and mother may abandon me, but God, you will gather me in, right? You're not going to leave me away. And this is of course the theme that comes up a million times, um, a million times in the Psalms. And this is how I know, you know, I I understand the Psalms to be poetic poetic recreations in some sense of David HaMelech's or our psalmist, whoever that psalmist is, of our poets, let's call him David, um, uh, conversations with God. And so it switches off and on, and I understand that from my own conversation with God. If anybody sits down and have a conversation with God, it's like you're sitting at your kitchen table with your best friend, right? The conversation doesn't stay on one topic, right? That's not how conversations work with people you love. With people you love, conversations wander a little bit, right? They wander a little bit. And one of the things it's going to wander to again and again is turning and saying, please give me some advice. Just show me your way and lead me on the straight path, right? The mantra, right? For my because my attackers are watching. Really, for the sake, right? I make sure that I make sure that I uh make sure that I'm on the right path. Make sure that I go the right direction, because I know that there are dangers waiting to meet me, right? Waiting to meet me in every place that I go. Um, Hold on, I think Linda asked a question. I have to look at the chat, which is hiding from me because they keep changing where they put the chat thing. Okay, what does it mean to seek your face? Um, it does relate. Yes, I think it does relate to the idea. I think it does relate to the idea of teshuvah, right? Because you're turning in the direction of God. It's interesting, right? There are two things when it comes to turning. One is like we don't want God to turn his face away from us, right? We don't want God to turn his face away from us. Um, and we also don't, and we also want to be able, we also want to be able to seek out his face. And I think that is tshuva. And I think seeking out God's face in our daily lives is really to seek his presence in all the things we encounter, whether it's like in the way that we look at the things that happen to us, and we try to understand, you know, the ways in which he's educating us through our experiences, or by our experience of the world, and to see and to look out at nature and culture and technology and all of these things, and see expressions of God's face, in the sense of God's way of expressing himself, right? The whole world is in some sense an expression of God, right? And the whole world is in that sense God's face. If you kind of think about it, I'm a little nervous about the imagery. I don't want to go too far on the imagery, but God's presence is manifest. It's manifest through all the things that we encounter. So trying to actively trying, right? Bakesh really means to actively seek, to really look for. I always think about it, if we looked for God like we look for our keys, you know that feeling like when you lose your keys, and like nothing else will do. Like you're busy looking for your keys, and you find the book that you misplaced. It doesn't matter, right? You're looking for your keys, and you find, you find the gold, you find the diamond ring that you lost 10 years ago. It doesn't matter, right? Because what you want to find is those keys, right? So we're looking for God, like we're looking for our lost keys. I don't know if that answers your question, but it was a try. He says, finally, and to continue, he says, don't leave me. So don't leave me it's interesting wording. I don't know why, but nefesh, sorry, I don't know why it says nefesh. It's strange. He translates it here as the will of my enemies. It's not a normal word for will. It usually means the person, the person or the soul of my enemies. But don't leave me to my enemies. It says, Ki kamu bi avesheker. Says, for false witnesses rise against me. V'yifeach Hamas. It's actually v'yifeach, I think would usually mean blows. I mean, who blast. Um, um, oh, Asma quoted a verse in the Quran, wheresoever you turn, there is the face of God. So exactly, it's every place you look, but you have to pay attention, right? Sometimes I think that spirituality is just, the art or the science of paying attention. So I'm being followed by people who are false witness against me, and who radiate violence, or blowing, blasting, violence. He says, and if not for my faith, if I didn't believe in you, not for my faith, they would destroy me. The Robotov Hashem, it says, if not for my faith, that I would see God's goodness in the land of the living. If I didn't believe, right? If I didn't have faith, that I would see goodness in the land of the living. And land living here, honestly, Be'eretz Chaim, can be a euphemism for the world to come also, right? The land of the living could also be, we refer to a cemetery as a Beit HaChaim, right? As the house of the living, when of course we really mean the dead. But assuming this means in the world, but he says they would destroy me if not for my faith. And maybe that relates a little bit to what Lainey we were talking about before the class. Where do we get our grit from? Where do we get our our ability to be resilient, right? So if we have faith, if we have faith, that can provide us with a kind of resilience. If I believe that what God really wants from me is to lirod tov be'eretz chaim, right? To Eretz Chaim, to see good in the world of the living, and then it gives me a certain resilience, a certain amount a certain amount of a kind of strength in that. And then finally he ends, Kaveh Adonai. He says, put your hope in God. And this kaveh, related, by the way, related to the Arabic word taqwa. Not so it's not just hope. It's it says put your hope in God. It's not just hope. It's your focus. It's your it's your focus. It's also sometimes translated as waiting, right? Because when you wait on something, when you wait for something, you're completely focused on its arrival. Okay? But put your hope in God. Chazak yametz libecha. It says, be strong and he will strengthen your heart. Kaveh Hashem. Just put your hope in God. Right? Put your hope in God. Wait for God. Focus on God, and everything is going to be okay. And that's how he ends. That's how he ends the psalm. And the next psalm, see, will continue a lot of those themes. Let's see. On verse 12, I have a question from Linda. Linda types fast. That's a lot to type in a short amount of time. I admire that. It says, do not turn me over to the desires of my foes. Do not let their, well, hold on. Do not let their triumph rejoice over me. In light of the long history of conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, can this verse be seen as a call to action for both sides to resist the temptation to demonize or dehumanize the other? How can individuals on both sides work towards building bridges of understanding and empathy rather than portraying cycles of violence? Well, I like that you asked me only the small questions. That's okay. Only the small questions. Listen, I think nobody wants to be left. Nobody wants to be left to the will of their enemies, because the part of what it is to be an enemy, unfortunately, often is dehumanizing and not wanting for the other person what you want for what you want for yourself. And the fact is nobody wants to be stuck at the will of somebody who hates them, and or somebody vifeh Hamas, right? Somebody who's radiating, or somebody who's blasting violence at them. So I listen. For me, for me, if you've seen any of the things I write on this topic or that I say on this topic, I think that the most important, the key to it is to end the dehumanization, right? Is for people to see each other as human beings. I don't know exactly how to do that. I've never known how to do that. If I did, I've tried a million things, honestly, to get people to do that. But that seems to me the answer. You would not, there are things that you would not do, to people who are like you, that you will do to people who you think are not like you, who you no longer think are people. And once you turn people into human monsters, right? And which was the wording used by one of the Israeli politicians. Once you do that, then it gives you permission to do anything. And so Roxanne has put my other solution to the Middle East crisis, which is to wear a tinfoil hat. That is my other solution, so that brain worms should not infect your mind. You're welcome. Anybody's welcome to save that. You can put that in your refrigerator. Just goes, I don't take myself too seriously. More comments on Psalm 27, thoughts? Okay, I move on? Okay, I'll move on. Right? Yours are so easy. Easy on me today. Okay, so Psalm 28, again, the David. Elecha Adonai Akra. Says, God, I call out to you. Remember, calling out is something that you do to somebody who's far away, right? So he's talking about a moment when he feels like God is far away. Hold on, I'm going to clear my throat. This, you don't need to listen to this. It's a bad noise. So hold on. I don't know whether it worked, but that was a lot of fun.
Is
Okay,
Nathan going to chant the text or not?
what?
Is Nathan going to chant the text?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, Nathan. Well, why am I letting you off the hook? I'm not letting you off the hook. Okay,
I can do it. Just
Okay,
we had established that if we start a new song, then we do it. But
okay, so let's do it.
I mean, we had if we start the class with a new song, then we can do it. But I can do it. Yeah. Okay, I'll
Okay,
do it.
good.
לדוד אליך אדוני אקרא צורי, אל תחרש ממני, פן תחשה ממני ונמשלתי עם יורדי בור. שמע כל תחנוני בשבעי אליך, ונושאי ידי אל דבר קודשך. אל תמשכני עם רשעים ועם פועלי אבן, דוברי שלום עם רעיהם ורעה בלבבם, תן להם כפעולם וכרוע מעלליהם, כמעשה ידיהם תן להם, השב גמולם להם, כי לא יבינו אל פעולות אדוני ואל מעשה ידיו יהרסם, ולא יבנם. ברוך אדוני כי שמע כל תחנוני, אדוני עוזי ומגיני, בו בטח ליבי ונעזרתי, ויעלוז ליבי, ומשירי אהודנו, אדוני עוז לעמו, ומעוז ישועות משיחו הוא, הושיע את עמך, וברך את נחלתך, רעם ונשם, עד העולם.
thank you so
Beautiful.
much.
Beautiful. And
And can
the ions are getting beautiful. I can feel them. You have to be able to feel the ions. Okay.
Nathan, are you using a standard Sephardi pronunciation or what when you chant?
Yeah, I'm using standard Sephardi with trying to emphasize the ions and yes, if that's what you're asking. The tune is from a audio recording that is of the Syrian tradition. Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice. There's there are a number of different the tunes kind of vary regionally. So you have a Syrian, you have a couple of different Moroccan versions. The Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian all sound pretty much alike. Don't tell them that because they think they're completely different, but won't tell them. But they're mostly the same. And pronunciation, when we've come to think that Israeli pronunciation is kind of Sephardi pronunciation, but it's not, right? Israeli pronunciation is a whole different thing. Sephardi pronunciation, they tend to do different things, and there are a couple different variations on Sephardi pronunciations.
The Syrians that I knew in my gap year yeshiva would pronounce bet always as bet.
As bet,
and
right.
I don't do that when reading it, even though I'm
right. Teshuba. Yeah. It's yeah. There's some interesting variations. So, okay. So, Elech Adonai Ekra. See, you guys can do it in Ekra. So God, I will call out to you. Calling is something you do, somebody's far away. So we know that what's going on is that he feels that that God is far away, He's calling over the abyss, right? He's calling it as a distance. He says, Tzuri, al techarash mimeni. This word tzuri, we don't really know exactly what to do with it, because it literally means a stone. It means a rock, and it's a strange thing to call God. I mean, to call God a rock, right? Or you think about something which is solid, which is an anchor, which is, I guess a symbol of solidity. Um, but here he translates as like Matsudati, as my fortress. Tsur also can mean sometimes means a source of something. So Tsuri, my source, actually sounds a lot nicer. But he says, okay, my fortress. Al Takarash Mimeni says, do not ignore me. Pen Takashe Mimeni says, if you do not respond, and literally if you're deaf to me, if you're somebody's Pentakashe Mimeni, no, that's not deaf. No, I'm sorry. I take it back. So if you do not respond to me, Nimshalti im Yordebor says, I will be like somebody who I'll be like somebody who sinks into the depths, sinks down into sinks down into an empty into an empty hole. A bore is an empty hole into the pit, right? I'll be like somebody who's, it's a pretty, I kind of imagine, kind of the Middle East, where you have people have dug various holes for water, and the water dries up, the water table changes, and you just have this deep hole going into the ground that you could easily fall into. And says it's just going to end up among those who fall into the hole. But it's about as good a description of sadness and depression as you could possibly have, right? That feeling of being, in the pits, right? Being down in the pits. It's a pretty good physical description of that experience. Shama kol techanunai, it says here the depths of my supplication, of my plea. Bishavi alecha, when I cry out to you. Binasi yadai says, when I raise my hands. Interesting. The other day I saw one of the Salafi preachers. I like to watch all sorts of things. And one of the Salafi preachers was complaining that Muslims use the joined hands emoji. And he said, no, it's haram to use the joined hands emoji. Okay, because that's not the way that Muslims pray. Right? That's not a hand gesture of Muslims. Instead, you should use the open hand emoji. Now, I don't know if there is an open hand emoji, but there should be. Okay, and this is the gesture that's being referred to here. This is the prayer gesture, right, of having your hands open, to receive from above. So I raise my hands in prayer. El devir kodshecha, towards your holiest dwelling. And this is the rabbis go crazy with this one. But exactly where is he referring to? Where exactly is the dvir? And says, okay, this is it's the kodesh kodeshim, the holy of holies inside the temple. Means that he's raising his hands up to the Holy One, up to God. Al atim shecheni im rashaim. Says, don't let me be drawn to the wicked, right? Don't let me be drawn to the wicked, or it says drawn with the wicked. One of the commentators said, don't let me get caught up You know, it's you know, you're you're at an event and there's a riot, right? There's a riot at the event, and the police start arresting people, and they just arrest everybody who's there, not just the troublemakers. So I don't want to be arrested with the troublemakers, right? That's one way of understanding it. Please, don't drag me along with them. The other is don't let me be drawn with those. It's im poleaven, with the people who do evil. And I think this is I think this is but I think more than that, I mean, this is realistic. He's saying, help me not to fall in with the wrong people. And then he describes them, and I love what he says. Says divrei shalom imrehem. They speak to their neighbors about peace. Says v'ra'ah bilvavam. So you were asking before about the conflict in the Middle East. Okay, this is basically, everybody talks about peace, 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 right? Everybody wants peace, right? We want peace, and nobody wants peace, right? What they want, right? Nobody wants peace. I mean, and I'm not talking about normal human beings want peace, right? Normal human beings want peace. Normal human beings want to be able to send their children to school. They want to be able to go to the market and to buy food and to cook for their families and to lead normal lives and to be able to, to educate their children and get healthcare and all the things that people need to do to take care of themselves. It says, but there are those people, right? But there are those people who speak about peace, right? But really, that they really have evil in their hearts. They don't really have an intention for peace. They want power. They want power. They want money. They want control over things. They have their own agendas, and he asks not to be among those people. I think if more of us would pray this prayer, and if we could get all the politicians and leaders and generals and heads of militias and all these people, get them to say this prayer, maybe, and to really mean it, then maybe we would have some peace, because the people would have real peace in their hearts and not evil. He says, "Ten lahem kefalam." He says, repay them in keeping with their acts. Uchra ma'alem. It's interesting. I read this, repay them in keeping with their acts and the evil of their deeds. K'ma'aseh yadechem ten lahem, and pay them back for what they have done. V'hashev gmulam lahem. It said, give them what they deserve. Now, I read this, like this. Okay, I read it like this. Repay them in keeping with their acts and the evil of their deeds. Pay them back for what they've done and give them what they deserve. That's how I read it. And Rabbi Steinsaltz, I heard Rabbi Steinsaltz, he comments on this, and he reads it very differently. He reads it as being very gentle. It's like saying, pay them back. We have a concept of midah keneged midah, that your punishment suits the crime, right? Punishment suits the crime. And so he says, pay them back and keep with their acts and the evil of their deeds. Pay them back what they deserve and give them what they deserve and not more. That's how he understands it. He understands it as being limiting, as saying, listen, these people, they deserve what they deserve, but please, right, don't give them more than they deserve. I'm not sure if I buy that, but I thought it was interesting. But he's calling for justice, right? He's calling for justice, and he's calling for a justice which is fair, which is midah keneged midah, which is in which the punishment suits the crime. Ki lo yavinu epulat Adonai. See, now this is why Rabbi Steinsaltz sees this as being a little gentle, because he says, Ki lo yavinu et palut Hashem. Says they don't understand that God has acted. Okay, these people, if they understood about you, if they knew about you, if they understood about God, they would not be doing these things. So they're actually acting in ignorance, right? They're acting in ignorance. So and they don't know about the works of your hands, right? He says they don't know anything about that. Below Yivnim. He says he'll tear them down and not rebuild them. Says that's for people who are doing evil, for the people who are speaking of peace, who are speaking of peace, but in their hearts are evil. He says these are people. He says they should get what they deserve, right? They should get what they deserve. And they're people who don't know God, and whatever it is that they construct, they should know it's going to be broken down. It's not going to be preserved for them. Baruch Adonai ki shema kol tachanunai. He says, I will thank God. The blessing, this expression Baruch, one of the most important expressions in Jewish prayer and one of the most difficult. Because it seems as if, right? Normally we would translate this is Baruch Hashem, right? Blessed is God, right? So blessed is God sounds like we are giving a blessing to God. That seems like a very strange thing to do. We expect God to give blessings to us, not for us to give blessings to God. Blessing is something that, the rabbi gives a blessing to his student. The sheikh gives a blessing to his murid, to his student. A father gives a blessing to the child. Mother gives a blessing to the child. It's something that somebody from above does to somebody below, so to speak. But here it would seem to say that we're doing that to God. We're doing that to God. He translates it nicely as I will thank God for his blessings. Right? Baruch Hashem could also be, another way to understand it is as an A equals B sentence, right? That God is the Baruch, God is the blesser. God is the one who provides for blessing. So I will thank God for his blessings. Ki shama kol tachanunai, because he hears the sound of my supplications, of my pleas. Adonai uzi umagini. He is my strength and my shield. This is bo batach libi v'nazarti. My heart trusts in him and I am helped. Ya'aloz libi. My heart rejoices. It says Mishiri Ahodenu. Okay. And I thank him with songs. Adonai Oz Lamo Ma'oz Yeshuot Mishichod Hu. It says, and so God is the strength of his people and refuge that saves his anointed. And when he refers to his anointed, he's referring to himself, right? Because he is the anointed, he is the Mashiach, in the sense that he is the anointed of God. He was anointed as the king, right? Oil was poured over his head, and that was a sign of his being chosen for a king. And it says God is the strength of his people. And by the way, you'll notice it doesn't say you're my people Israel. It's not an ethnic designation, right? It's at least not here. That's not, it's the people who belong to you. He says finally, Hoshea Damecha, he says, deliver your people, uvarech nachalatecha, and bless your inheritance, right? That is the thing which you own. Oreim v'nasem ad olam. It says, tend them. He's interesting how he understands this. He understands Oreim. to mean like a shepherd, right? So tend, and nasim, to raise them. Interesting, is also related to counting. To raise something also as a way of counting it. So we suddenly switched into like a shepherding image at the very end here. So it's tend them, and nasim can also mean not just raise them, but also like to count them, and when we count something, it shows that we have love for it, that it's important to us, right? If we count our money, if we have a collection of things, right? And we count those things and we say we have 150 bottles of perfume, right? Then 153 bottles of perfume, but that we count them because there's something which is precious to us. So it says, Urim b'nasem, that we will tend them and raise them or count them ad olam, forever. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Baruch Adonai L'olam, amen v'amen. Thoughts, meditations, Nathan?
Despite several times I've looked at this psalm to prepare if I was going to be reading it or not. And but still, when I read it today, I was surprised by the last familiar verse, because yeah, I'm trying to work on my familiarity with the Psalms, but still I did not remember that this last verse was going to be here. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
something
also
that
I had exactly the same experience. It was like, that's here? That-
Mhm.
yeah, I had no idea that's where it was. I've only seen it kind of disembodied, you know? Yeah. I was like, oh, there it is. Yeah.
I have a question that's non-related, but there's these two expressions, Bnei Yisrael and then the Am Yisrael.
Yeah.
And they have been highly politicized. The Am Yisrael is in the ascendant, and every time you run into someone obnoxious, that's the expression they're using.
Yeah.
And when we take a look at the Chumash, would we see the Bnei Israel being used more frequently, or in what context is Am Yisrael used? What's the difference and what are the nuances?
I honestly, I don't know. I have to look at, there's a discussion of this. The only discussion I haven't thought about, and the only discussion I know about this is Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, or Samson Hirsch, back in the 19th century. Like he talks about this, and he talks about the difference between when Am is used and when Goy is used and when Bnei Yisrael is used, and he talks about the difference. I don't remember exactly what he said. I one of the things I do remember is that one of the differences between Goy and Am is that Goy is a real ethnic designation, right? Refers to a an ethnographic description of a people, as opposed to which is which refers to the people as kind of like a community of a community of people who are joined by values, if that makes sense. And that may be why Am has become kind of more, popular, because it's more inclusive, right? It's more inclusive. Bnei Yisrael is like is the family designation, so to speak, right? The people who are the descendants of Yisrael. Well, of course, now Am Yisrael includes all sorts of converts and people from all sorts of different places in the world, and maybe that's the thing. It's interesting how that has become kind of a greeting, You know, Am Yisrael Chai has become like a sort of uh, I don't know what you call that exactly, but it's become sort of a salute. That's the word. It's become
You
sort of
see,
salute.
sometimes I react very negatively towards it because it seems to me there's a subtext of hegemony written into it. And what I like about the Bnei Yisrael is clearly that it allows for multiplicity and diversity, and it's a big approach, a big tent approach to community.
Yeah.
Whereas I suspect that Am Yisrael is in the process of transition. It's moving away. It has moved away from spiritual community, I think, at
Yeah.
least in the political discourse of today. Or is that me reading too much into it?
No, I think no, I don't think I don't think you're reading too much into it. I think that these things are fluid, and that's something, that's something that has become kind of a triumphalist, salute. And I'll be truthful, and I'm going to get myself in trouble. It also makes me uncomfortable. I'm not, I'm not a triumphalist. It's not my thing. So it makes me nervous when people kind of communicate in those ways. So bye, Asma. Thank you for coming. So okay, I should get going. Thank you guys so much. Were there more questions? I'm sorry, so sorry. I didn't mean to. Lainey, you had a question? No, you were buying. Okay, everybody should have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for coming. I have friends from UK here. I have friends from France here. I have friends from Canada here, which is just like France, except they speak English. And Benson, our local, and Harry. And I wish everybody a beautiful week or 2 days, depending upon whether I see you on Wednesday. Kol tov, have a beautiful day. Bye.